Colt Vaughn is a man on a mission, and that mission is to kabloom, pew and kapowie his way out of a time loop on Black Reef Island. But the only way to break this time loop is to kill 8 visionaries in the space of 1 day. Well, it sounds like maybe an easier task than it actually is. This is the premise of Deathloop, the new game from Arkane. To break the loop, it's going to take some kick-ass armory, a lot of forward planning, and a lot of meddling with the space-time continuum. Oh, and while you're at it, Juliana Blake is trying to kill you. With multiple 10 out of 10 reviews across the board, I wanted to check Deathloop out and see if it is worth the hype. Now, while I don't think that Deathloop is a 10 out of 10 game, it sure is a hell of a lot of fun. And while the gameplay is pretty standard, I really love the mind-boggling narrative design and the absolutely crazy 70s aesthetic. Plus, the game is just freaking hilarious. I mean, the dialogue between Colt and Juliana and some of the overheard conversations in this game are just really, really damn funny.
You're never, ever going to break the loop. It's absolutely impossible.
You want me to break it? You don't want me to break it. What do you want from me?
I want you to not suck.
It's one of the most fun PlayStation 5 releases this year, and I'm going to get into why that is. So please stick around, hit subscribe, and let's go break some loops. Colt Vaughn is an atypical hero. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but by damn he is good at killing things, so that's what he's going to do. With a myriad of wacky weapons, think a stealth nail gun, a pastel pink sniper rifle, and the kick-ass machine gun known as the pepper grinder. This is an awesome weapon and make sure you pick it up. Colt relives the same day repeatedly, trying to break the loop. For what reason, he's not even sure. He's just pissed off at the other visionaries and that Juliana is trying to kill him.
Watch out. This one is smart. Cunning even. Yeah, but we're smarter.
Juliana Blake is Colt's opposite, and she will go down in video game history as one of the great antagonists. Think GLaDOS from Portal 1 and 2. She just provides this amazing, sassy and smart dialogue and commentary over Colt's behavior and performance in this game. Juliana knows what's going on, but she's not going to tell you. Instead, she's just going to try to kill you. And this makes a great aspect of the game in the PvP. You can play as Juliana Blake and invade other people's time loops in order to attack them and assassinate them. But more on that in a second. Part of the fun of Deathloop comes from tracking down these outrageous visionaries. They're no benevolent leaders, rather a bunch of egotistical creatives and scientists stuck in a time loop together with endless resources and a desire for total world domination. And most of them hate each other. Part of the fun of Deathloop is reading the correspondence between these visionaries and how much their personalities come into clash. You pursue these visionaries over 4 periods of time in the day and 4 different locations. Now, if that sounds like there's not a lot of maps in the game, it's actually more like 16 because each map changes over the time of day. And also there's so many hidden locations in these maps. So the environmental design is really interesting here. What seems like a simple task of killing 8 visionaries over the space of the day becomes intricately more complicated when you realize you only have 4 time periods in which to do so. So part of the plan is getting people in the right location at the right time so you can enact your crazy shenanigans. What's most impressive here is the narrative design. It's absolutely mind-boggling how this story links together over those periods of time. And one thing that you might do in the morning has a flow-on effect to the rest of the day. It's a matter of uncovering clues and solving puzzles in order to get people where you need them to be. And some of these are quite intricate and complex and require multiple loops in order to complete. A perfect example of this is early on in the game you get access to a power generator, and I don't feel like I'm spoiling too much here, but by turning on the power here you get access to other locations in different places through the day. So it's really interesting to see how this flows on through those scenarios over time. Action-wise, the gameplay is fine. It's nothing new here, and this is probably why I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 game. Deathloop brings some really unique perspectives in narrative design, but in terms of the shooting action as a first-person shooter, it's nothing we haven't seen before except with some pretty funky weapons. I also had problems with the PlayStation 5 controller. I find like the left arrow buttons are really not well allocated in this game. It makes it quite a slow process between swapping between gadgets, grenades and special powers, especially in the middle of a battle. I found myself accidentally shooting through to the middle of a battle when I meant to become invisible, or using a grenade when I meant to use the hack-a-majig in stealth mode. Not a good idea. You can choose a stealthy approach in Deathloop by sneaking up on Eternalists, and there are some powers that you get through the game that help you with this. But for the most part, I think that Deathloop is actually better played loud and proud and out in the open. It's sometimes easier and more convenient to just shoot down all the Eternalists in the area and then go exploring, rather than taking all the time to stealth around and finally get discovered anyway. Part of the fun though of the stealth mode is hacking turrets and turning them against your opponents using a tool called the hack-a-majig, and I kid you not, that's what it's called. This is the kind of vibe of Deathloop, and using them against your enemies, which is quite fun during the game and a bit of an assist as well. You can also pick up these turrets and port them around the map if you'd like to really sabotage a few people. But it really is often easier and more convenient to shoot your way through the map. One of the biggest strategies, and I mean it's a classic game strategy in first-person shooters, is to attract the enemy from a distance and bottleneck them at a door. And this is probably the strategy that I've had the most success with in Deathloop. It's not good to get swarmed, as is with all games, and especially if there are a lot of Eternalists around, you want to get out of there pretty quickly and pick them off before they get too close. You have your handy machete, which is great for one-on-one combat or stealth mode, but if you get overwhelmed, it's really not going to help you here. Deathloop could possibly be considered a roguelike game, but I wouldn't actually think it is. I think it's more of a first-person shooter. Deathloop deals with the frustration of roguelike games, which is dying continuously, see Returnal, and actually gives you multiple lives through a loop. So it doesn't feel like a strict roguelike here. I often found myself taking advantage of those extra lives in order to infiltrate and kill those visionaries. The problem though is if you do get killed, you lose all your residium, and that's your magical juice for souping up your weapons and remembering them for the next loop. So you'll often find yourself sneaking back to the location that you got killed, trying to pick up your residium and hoping nobody shoots you again. Influences on Deathloop are wide and varied here. Apart from the obvious development from Dishonored, there's references to Day of the Tentacle, Bioshock, Thief, Fallout, Portal, and 70s blaxploitation films. All of these play a part, and it might seem like a kind of wacky combination of ideas, but for me it works. I really appreciate this kind of off-the-wall wacky humor. Added to this is a strong metagaming element. Charlie Montague, the visionary and irate game designer, litters the world with games within games. You can participate in Charlie Montague's live game experiences, including opening boxes that might explode on you, answering a quiz with no clear answers, navigating a cardboard space experience as the invader, and reading his world-weary complaints about his problems with game development. He's meant to make this rewarding for you, but he just doesn't want to. Added to this, there are arcades littered around the game, and I wish you could have played these, but they're satires on Doom and Castlevania, to name a few. The game also commentates for you in some of the most hilarious moments of the game. Text pops up in the environment, which is things like walk this way, or quick exit here, or watch out for Eternalists. And these things can be more helpful than not, but I still don't quite trust them. But why isn't Deathloop a 10 out of 10 game if I enjoyed it so much? Part of this has to do with gameplay. I feel like the control allocation could have been a lot better in this game. I feel like things like R3 was really underutilized, which is Press R3 to kick ass, which is hilarious. But at the same time, apart from kicking Eternalists off cliffs, which is kind of fun, you don't use it a heap in this game. So I feel like there could have been a little bit more thought put into the controls on PlayStation 5 here. One of the other issues with Deathloop is that the text is way too small. But when little items turn up on the screen, it's really hard to read them as well because the font size is so small. And I'm like sitting a couple of meters away from my TV on my couch, kind of squinting, going like, what does that even say? The menu design is not great either. I found myself struggling to navigate on controller. It doesn't zoom very well or scroll very well when you're trying to access the visionary menus. Finally, a note on PvP. Now, this is a great idea in concept, but in practice, it's a little problematic. I'm playing PlayStation 5 in Australian time zones, and I was sitting around for 5 minutes at least trying to find a matchup, trying to find a game to infiltrate. So I don't know if this will increase as more people buy the game, but for me, I was kind of struggling to actually even try this out. So I've been through the PvP twice, and both times I was waiting a significant amount of time in order to even get into the game. And a couple of times I even just quit because I was like, well, I can't sit around forever waiting to get a matchup. Once you're in though, it is quite fun, and having had Juliana invade a lot of my time loops, it just adds this kind of frustration as Colt when you're trying to assassinate a visionary and all of a sudden Juliana is on the prowl. All in all, Deathloop is a hilariously brilliant game. I've been reflecting a lot on what games should be lately, and while all games don't have to be fun, Deathloop really hits that mark of pure entertainment, and it sure gave me a laugh in this really difficult year. I'm Kat Clay. That was my take on Deathloop. If you like video games, writing, cosplay, nerd videos, please hit subscribe and support my channel. And as always, please take care, and thanks so much for watching.